The Zone Coverage Podcast Network. The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
The Andy, Luke, and Arif football machine.
Autobots, transform! I like this kind of party!
Great cash, homie.
Starts now.
Welcome back to Thunderdome for another Zone Coverage Football Machine, Zone Coverage Podcast Network. It's kind of a big one. I'm your not so humble host, Andy Carlson, at Andy Carlson Show on the Twitter machine, and I have equity. More equity than Brad Childress is getting coaching the AAF Atlanta Dirty Birds.
Can you please tell me?
Michael Vick is offensive coordinator.
That's
my
so
God.
good. That's so good.
No, defensive coordinator needs to be Ray Buchanan.
Wait,
Come on.
So is their offense just going to be a
No,
quarterback?
Scott Chandler should be in the mix somewhere.
Is their offense just going to be the quarterback running out of the pocket?
Well, yeah, because
winging it?
Leidner's is going to be the quarterback.
Tavares Jackson. Do you think this is something he can do in his mid-30s?
Absolutely.
1,000%. He's still got that jump shot.
What?
Roll out, jump shot.
I mean, wasn't Dante at the UFL for a while?
Yeah.
Sacramento Mountain Lions with Denny,
Not on purpose, though.
Yeah, and then after him, it was McLeod, John Baltasar, Bethel Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Sacramento Mountain Lions represent.
The big
The real number 4.
the basketball league, the Big Three, shown that nostalgia is very powerful.
Yeah.
And just even at a micro level, just seeing T-Jack sling passes into
Is this
the dirt
Chad
again.
Johnson?
Don't
Chad
care.
Johnson
No,
smokes
Chad Johnson.
Oh, no. Chad Johnson, Donovan McNabb. Let's friggin' go. I mean,
Chad
come on.
smokes a cigar on the sideline, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
it's McDonald's. He
1,000%.
notoriously had a terrible diet. But yeah, join me. We got the crew back together. Arif Hassan is over his sickness and sabbatical. What would you do? What did you do on your world travels?
Stayed at home.
Oh,
I wasn't even allowed to sleep on the bed. I had to sleep on the couch.
That's how you know.
what'd you
Yeah.
do?
Well, I threw up.
Oh, that old cliche. Yeah. Came in late.
Is that what the kids call it nowadays?
Came in late, drunk, partying with the guys at poker night, or I got the flu. Couch it. Also, Luke Inman, Luke_Spinman. How's it going?
Good, man. It's
Now,
tomorrow.
Is this exciting for you, being draft miss, or is it more like we finally did it? Oh, like Jessica Chastain at the end of Zero Dark 30 when they kill B'Elanna, when she's in the plane, she's like, Is it like that?
Exactly like that. You go in waves because all your hard work's starting to pay off.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, once the draft actually starts, I know we'll be covering it from Egan, and we'll have a lot of work to be done. But when you hear that first bell, you know that draft ticker bell? Like, comes out, he gets booed, he says, draft is now in session. I'm going to kick back and really enjoy it. I mean, I get excited.
You're not.
It's so fun.
You're not going to tip picks because you know what
that has ruined the experience. Sorry to interrupt. That's ruined the experience the last few years. Although there's times where it's super helpful and I like it, but for the most part, the magic of waiting to hear it be called, I miss that.
They should have Twitter on a delay, like a setting.
I think Rich Eisen really bitched about this on a podcast.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he tweeted something.
Yeah.
He was bummed about it, but.
I think he's a little bit too close as the guy who's on the
I just
Yeah.
love that Fox, NFL Network, and ESPN are all and this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also
Fox is new, though. It used to be just the big
it's
two.
It's a
ESPN.
simulcast, though, right, on Fox and NFL Network?
I think you're right. Yeah, or ABC, I think, is doing
ABC's doing Saturday.
One day, yeah, Saturday, day 3.
Yeah,
and they're going to
that's
test
ESPN.
that out on the local, and then they're going to move forward probably from here on out. But, everybody's doing a show now. Bleacher Report does a show. All of them. Our boys NDT Scouting does a show. How do you pick one? You know what I mean? It's just tough as a viewer to. You got to go with your
Tom,
favorites.
we're going to end up doing a show, aren't we?
Yeah, but think how fun it would be.
It would
Live,
be fun.
Drunk.
That's our boss.
Doesn't sound fun at all, Tom.
No,
this is an intervention.
I
You wanna
propose
start?
we only do a day 3 show where everyone is hammered, and then every other pick, I'm like, I don't know who that is. But whatever.
The best part is you'll definitely say that about players that you definitely know. Like
Yeah.
Shaquem Griffin, be like, who is that?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that guy.
Right.
Moritz Beringer. Why won't they talk about him?
Who's your favorite? I always grew up with ESPN, obviously, so I used to like Kuiper a lot, but just the turntable of him and Gruden on there was fun, and then I forget who else they had a third guy.
ESPN,
Not Berman. I wasn't a Berman guy.
ESPN is really good when they have David Shaw on.
David Shaw's great.
Oh, he's great.
But he's more NFL Network now, is he not? I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but now,
I think I prefer NFL Network.
Now I can't go wrong with Rich Eisen. Mayock's our boy, and then David Shaw and Daniel Jeremiah. Yeah. I love those guys. So
DJ's great.
It's a good before I get Yinka, what about a vent line show? Just people tweaking out about picks or trades?
That's what Twitter's for.
Yeah, I suppose. It's fun to hear him. I'm going to go get Yinka.
I can't believe we paid $40 for this Vikings draft party and they traded out. See, that's what you get.
I bet that's in the ticket.
Oh, yeah.
You assume the risk.
No, you get a refund.
Forget.
You get a free Bud Light if they trade out.
I'll never forget CP Flash going, hey, you all want to see us draft Johnny Manziel? Want to say yeah? Yeah! Of course, everybody is drunk on Bud Light, and you remember that draft. Like, Johnny was serious consideration at night. And the fact that he was there.
We need to do right by our corporate overlords. It's Miller Lite.
My bad.
Yeah, and also the 2014 when the Vikings went from 8 to 9, took Barr, and everyone started leaving because my buddy Nick was there. I was like, yeah, people are leaving in like the teens, and then 32. Let's get back in.
Bum, 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 bum. Trade ticker, orange trade.
Yeah.
We've done it.
Let's not talk about sad things, but Tom's working the board. Yinka is coming in.
That was a beautiful
as well.
moment.
It still hurts.
It's a moment.
It's a moment.
Arif, you've been doing some work. Pimp the Draft Guide.
Have I?
You've published more in these past 2 days than you have since like week 8 on.
Yes.
Of the season.
Yeah. I haven't been writing a lot, and then I wrote a lot. Yeah.
He published that consensus board, which is like the coolest thing ever. If you haven't seen it, you need to check out consensus big board. Obviously, we pimped that last week as well, but the consensus big board that he does every year is just outstanding because nobody else does it.
Which I find kind of surprising.
To get all these experts now to be able to get every, ESPN's got 2 experts, NFL Network's got 5. You summed up what, 37?
I now am up to 50.
50 different boards from 50 different quote-unquote experts that it's like, dude, this is valuable information. So I think it's pretty cool, and I think that it's had good luck, too, hasn't it, past few years?
Yinka never touch my head again.
Was that a little tickle?
Yeah, no,
you can touch my head.
Yeah, no, it's had a ton of.
It's been pretty good.
Yeah, it's had a ton of success. So I've been grading the board against draft results 2014, 2015. They're up on the site. You can take a look at which boards did the best, which boards need a little bit of work. I've also looked at who best predicts the draft and stuff like that. And what's great is that the consensus board predicts the draft better than anybody else. And the forecaster board, which breaks it out into like 10 essential boards that are people with access to the NFL, people like Mike Mayock and Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. That forecaster board predicts it even better. So it's the best predictor of the draft over the past 4 years. So it's even better than Mayock, who's probably the best predictor of the draft. And then in terms of predicting performance, it beats every board except I think only 3 boards beat it in 2014, 2015 combined.
That's wild.
And it does just as well as the NFL draft itself, which is really cool because it's composed of all of these people who themselves couldn't do as well as the consensus. But when you pool everyone's knowledge together, it's kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. All of the kind of the weirdness gets kind of averaged out. The only issue, of course, is that the board can't be bold. Right, just by its very nature, it just can't be like, I'm going to put this out there. Kamoka Toure, first-round talent. It can't say that.
So it can't hit that Deion Jordan pick.
Right, yeah, right.
Join us, Yinka Ayende.
Yeah,
Saxon
man.
Prince. What's going on?
Thanks for having me, guys. Always.
So when he was walking in, I told him, did you see this thing that leaked on Deadspin where it's a whiteboards from ESPN? It tells you which reporters will be covering which teams.
Yeah.
And then it says character concerns. Baker Mayfield, Mike Hughes, Arden Key, Antonio Callaway.
Antonio Callaway, has his own, is underneath the line.
I know. I don't know what that
Standard.
means. And then they obviously tell you how the pronunciations work. But then they also said Mayfield declined, along with Glenn Reed, some of these guys, to do live interviews. And we were saying for these shows,
it's pretty common.
Yeah, I think, and I just wonder if they listen to his character concerns because he's being a dick to him.
I mean, yeah, probably.
I think Mayfield's put enough out there that there's probably
Sure, that's fair.
So Mike Mayock, love his work, love him on TV. I love that he came into the industry, like he played in the league, but he wasn't a big name, so he actually had to put in the work as opposed to some analysts who have come and gone. But so Mayock is dialed in. He does his homework, and when his final big board comes out, it's got his tape watching in there. It's got his assessments. It's also got what he's hearing. And then all of a sudden, you see everyone's big boards just go a little bit like, maybe move that guy.
His big boards are legit. His mock draft, though, specifically his last mock draft that he does, is known to be one of the most, if not the most accurate, with the bigwigs from the media. Yeah. And it goes to the same thing you just said. He's plugged in to a lot of different teams and a lot of GMs, front offices, head coaches, everything. So even if he doesn't nail the specific player, sometimes he nails the specific position because he knows what those teams are going to do. So pay attention. Is that out yet?
His mock, I think, drops tomorrow morning.
Yeah, big board's been up for a day or two.
Yeah.
What's the most interesting draft rumor that you guys have heard? Like, it doesn't even matter if you believe it, just you're like, yeah.
I've heard with a ton of certainty that if Frank Ragnow's available at 21, which is weird because like a couple weeks ago he was like, maybe you get him at the bottom of round 2, top of round 3. But if he is available, which is not a likelihood anymore, at 21, the Bengals are going to draft him. Ravens are thinking about him, which, I mean, they picked pretty high. And I forget whoever's at 19.
Because the Ravens lost their starting center Ryan Jensen, who was quietly really good.
Yeah, he was excellent. Yeah,
that fills a major hole.
No, the Cowboys are fine.
I'm trying to think who might snipe him besides Baltimore. I mean, Buffalo obviously needs a center bad, but at 12, no, they're obviously moving.
They're trying to package all that together.
But, I can't see anybody else besides Baltimore.
Well, I mean, the key is that someone might trade up, right ahead of them.
Right.
Now, when someone is a late riser or a late faller, is that more the draft community has assessed them differently than what teams, as we get closer to draft, like this team is coming out, where the player is actually perceived to be?
A lot of it has to do with the fact that, like, this person has a lot of acclaim with either Bluestone National Scouting or a bunch of individual NFL team boards that everyone else just kind of finds out about, and then either they relook at what NFL teams like, or they just take it on faith and move that player up. There are some people that in the consensus big board that I received a month ago, there are some people that marked him as a potential first-round pick. So it was always there, but I think a lot of people didn't pick up on it. First, because he's a center. It takes a lot for a center to be a first-round pick. But second, he wasn't on a lot of people's kind of preseason radar, and so if it's a position that doesn't tend to get picked in the first round a lot, they're not going to be doing a ton of re-reviews. I know Brandon Thorne, huge Frank Ragnow fan, thinks he'll go in the
great
first.
O-line evaluator, so he's kind of our
he
go-to.
called a shot a month ago that said Frank Ragnow should go in the first, and I've seen other people say that too.
My craziest one I've seen is just how high people are mocking Marcus Davenport. I like him. I do. It's legit. Like, I understand the potential with this dude. I get it. But small school dude, you're talking about going top 10. And it's not just a small school. There's just a lot of things he needs to work on. To go top 10, especially over maybe a guy like Harold Landry first, I think it's just
Luke,
ridiculous.
haven't you read the Twitter.com that Harold Landry is overrated?
I also don't agree with Harold Landry going in the top 10, by the way. I think some Harold Landry top 10s is just I get like
I love Harold Landry. And I think if you were only to evaluate edge rushers by pass rush capability, I think Harold Landry has more than Bradley Chubb.
2016 he certainly did.
No, and that's kind of
that was the drop off. 2017,
it's kind of like the same thing with Wyatt Teller, kind of what happened between 2016 2017. But I think that he has just so much more available to him as a player that you could easily justify picking him in the top 10. Now, obviously, he's not as good of an every down player. He doesn't defend the run nearly as well. He's got, he doesn't have the size or the power, and I can see that. But yeah, I guess
other than that, he's phenomenal.
Yeah, other than that.
But besides all that, great guy.
Well, I mean, passing matters more than running, right? So, who cares? But yeah, so the NFL, evidently, according to at least one tweet.
They love him.
No, I mean, the NFL was saying that...
I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about Davenport.
Yeah, sorry. The NFL was saying that he was potentially overrated, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I was thinking, like, hey, if the Browns trade down from 4... right? They could pick up Harold Landry and another first-round pick. Mm-hmm. They could get premier positional talent, and Landry could end up being a better pass rusher than Chubb ends up being. And, maybe they'll give up a little bit in the run game. But they clearly don't care about that because they let Danny Shelton go.
That's right.
So, you might as well. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of like an interesting set of circumstances. But Davenport, yeah, the NFL loves him. He's powerful.
Just top 10's nuts, right?
Yeah, top 10 is a lot.
I forget what mock draft podcast I was listening to, and it was like 6 to the Colts. They flung out Marcus Davenport. I was like,
what? That's nuts. That's insane.
It was. I think it was Sims, Chris Sims.
But you can kind of see it, right? The same reason that Bradley Chubb is such a coveted prospect is kind of the same reason that Davenport, because you can see, with enough development, he is
at a
Bradley
premium
Chubb.
Position. You cannot have enough guys that can rush the passer.
Who
like
was
that,
the player on Sims and Leftco that didn't know that Chris Sims played in the NFL?
Oh, God, I can't remember. I'll have to go back and
I think it was a draft pick. Or
is that a compliment if someone's like, oh, I didn't realize that guy played, if they're good at the job they do right now?
No.
It almost always, they find out after they accuse someone of having not played in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
God, I can't remember off the top of my head.
What do you know? You haven't played the game.
Yeah, like Kevin Byard. Yeah, fan. Yinka, what's your favorite draft team?
Yeah, I don't remember where I heard it from, but I think a lot. Not a lot. I think I heard that some were thinking that Saquon might not be the first running back that's taken in the draft.
There's no.
That was on the Geist Family podcast. Can Darius go higher than
Jones?
Can Darius go higher than 1-1? Hop into last year's draft.
Yeah, no, obviously, I mean, as you guys are saying, it's absolutely ridiculous because Saquon is miles ahead of like most of the running backs that are in this draft class. And I mean, yes, it does say something as far as this draft class is. Your running back is considered. It's going to be considered for the number 1 overall pick. But in my opinion, even if he doesn't go number 1, he's far ahead of like Darius Geis, Ronald Jones, Sonny Michel. So yeah, I thought it was crazy.
I mean, I honestly think the gap between Geis and Saquon is not that large. I know Luke and I have had a discussion. Luke is a huge fan of Saquon. I've got a couple of reservations about his ability to run up the middle and take on contact kind of directly.
And that was kind of like, I think that was kind of the knock.
Which is something
saying that they don't like his run style as much.
Which is something that Geis can do very well.
Right.
So
exactly.
it's easy to kind of pick that out.
He's from Penn State. They're good at avoiding conflict.
Whew, boy. Well, they got rid of Bob O'Brien, who's a very vocal coach. I assume that's what you're referring to.
Yes. He'd go back.
But yeah, he would. But yeah, and it's, obviously what Saquon does well is like really well positioned for the way the modern NFL is played. So, whatever. But I mean, personally, I like Geis a lot, and I think the value that you can get for Geis is better. It just is weird to me to think that he wouldn't be the first running back going, even if, and I know there's some people I respect that have Geis above him, even if you're saying, hey, he's not the top running back, the steam from the NFL is that he absolutely should be picked. So the idea that he wouldn't be picked first, even if you personally don't have him ranked first, is just kind of absurd.
Right. Well, it's sort of like the Josh Allen thing. Like the NFL obviously values a lot of his traits, even though like evaluators, especially draft Twitter, a bulk of them are like, Whereas also, Vernon Adams, going back to that example, I draft Twitter, love Vernon Adams. NFL was like, hard pass. Nah. And I feel like to a degree, that's sort of what's happening with Lamar Jackson, although Jackson is a much more better and polished player than Vernon was.
Yeah. I mean, also, like, Vernon, like, went JUCO, then Eastern Washington, then
and
Oregon.
He was like 5'6".
Then didn't get to start at Oregon for a while. But, yeah, and he was, not tall. But, yeah, It is kind of weird how it seems like the NFL is really willing to kind of break the mold on the type of players that they look for at the running back position, at the guard position, at the defensive tackle position. They're willing to go a little bit smaller, but they absolutely will not do that for quarterbacks.
Not at all.
Money backer and tight end. Like tight end used to be, it's like be about the size of a tackle. Maybe you got some decent hands. We'll throw you like
6'5", 260.
We'll give it one target a game.
Yeah,
whatever. And now it's like, hey, tall wide receiver, put on a little weight. All right, you're tight end now. You're good. So the scheme that Isaiah Wynn and the whole labrum thing, which I don't know. Which
we should mention that Paul Allen said that he doesn't think the Vikings will grab him because of the torn labrum.
His phrasing was he's out on the labrum. Now, I don't know.
Paul Allen is out because of the labrum.
Now, PA is obviously connected, dialed in with Winter Park 2.0, Twin Cities optimized, but I don't know if this is just local media starting to break on steam that's been out there for a while, because everyone knew Isaiah Wynn had the labrum, got fixed in February, missed the Senior Bowl, missed Combine, blah, blah, blah. Everyone was still high on him. But, is he being fed something? Maybe this is a bit of gamesmanship.
You don't think Spielman goes to PA and he's like, "What do you think on this?"
That's
guy?
what he's saying.
I don't know what the precise nature of the relationship between the front office and PA is. I would probably think that it's not a direct Spielman to PA connection, but I also would not rule that out.
It's Peyton. He's Spielman's assistant to the regional general manager.
But I mean, Paul Allen, you could argue that Allen has been pretty good about signaling which picks the Vikings take. At the other end of the spectrum, you could argue that he does put a lot out there in the week leading up to the draft, and you could just say
called it.
and then you could just say he called it. The thing that sticks out in a lot of people's minds is the Anthony Barr call that he made a couple years ago when Barr wasn't on anyone's radar as a Vikings pick. They needed a quarterback. They were picking at 8, eventually 9. And there's no way that they weren't going to get a quarterback with that pick. And he was like, Anthony Barr, and that didn't make any sense. He was an edge rusher.
Johnny's on the board.
Vikings
Teddy's
were set
on the board.
at edge rusher. So he calls it, and so that's kind of what we've been... I'm not saying that's
the one we go back to.
Because,
it's the one we go back to.
Living off of 2014 like Mumford & Sons.
Right, and he called the Trey Waynes pick, but no one else called the Trey Waynes. He was the most mocked player to the Vikings.
There's some random ones, too, that clearly you knew something like a Dylan Bradley. I know he's not going to be a drafted guy, but undrafted free agent. I know they really like Dylan Bradley. Sure enough, they signed Dylan Bradley. But this one, it's Isaiah went out. So he's not calling a specific player. He's saying that he thinks maybe they're just crossing him off the board altogether.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if maybe there's some insight. Maybe Sugarman took a look at some of those medicals.
Yeah, I definitely think
because it's not. It's a shoulder. It's a labrum. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, they signed Anthony Harris as an undrafted free agent. Yeah. He had a labrum issue that kept him out. You're right. Labrums are not a big deal. Players have labrum injuries on every team every year.
But maybe it's worse than he let on. Maybe it's like a legit terrible shoulder.
Yeah, which would be pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Because he played well in the playoff.
And you know what, too? He may be gone. I mean, all likelihood, he probably is gone. But just goes to question again. Maybe you're right. Sugarman saw something that he didn't like. And if Sugarman did, I'm sure some other teams did, too.
But it goes back to what you were saying, Arif, in 2014. Even when we moved back to 9, even Teddy, in an interview during that year, he was surprised that he didn't get picked at 9. He was like, okay, well, if they're not picking me at 9, where the hell am I going as far as teams? So he was relatively shocked going at 32, but he did expect to get picked by the Vikings that year. But
yeah, I don't know. It's silly season.
Do you think? I've always wondered this. Do you think if the Vikings did pick Teddy Bridgewater at 9, that Barr would have been available for them at, or they would have moved up for him?
No, he would be 4-3 defensive end. Anthony Barr somewhere.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay Bucks. Something.
Him and JPP. Dynamic duo. Chemistry. All right, so we're going to do a little draft steam, yeah or nah. And then also we each got a 7-round mock draft, and then we'll talk about it. Luke's is fantastic.
Luke's is great.
I think people will like it.
Oh, Yinka, you haven't seen Luke's yet. It's good.
It's
good.
Tom Hiss with a little bit of music.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah or nah. First one, the Browns will F this up. Yeah or nah?
Yeah.
I mean, even if they draft right, it's the Browns. They won't develop into anything, and it's the Browns. So
they'll probably have a brand new coaching staff next year.
I mean, yeah.
I'll say
that's true, and that's why I think Hugh Jackson's not in the loop, which is great.
I say only because, I think Sam Darnold could become. I mean, we've heard the rumors that he's probably going to be the first quarterback taken to the Browns, and the issue that I have with Sam Darnold is, do I think that he's a day one starter right now? No, I definitely think he can.
He needs to sit.
Yeah, he needs to sit.
Not enough people talk about that.
I definitely think that he could become that guy. And
he's so young. Yeah, he's 20.
Exactly, a few years down the road. Which is why I'm just like, I think the Browns are going to screw up because they're not taking the more proven talent like a Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield, which is probably what they should go if they want to start winning. They have players on their squad that they could start winning some football games.
They could, if you get the right quarterback, there could be an 8-18.
Exactly.
They got Brian Body Calhoun and everyone else.
but again, they're going to spend a good majority of the prime of some of their really good players on waiting for this quarterback to develop when they could just win right now.
Right, like it'd be one thing if like that's kind of the hand they were dealt, if there are only one or two quarterbacks in the draft, and you're like, well, you've got some great players, you've got the BBC, right? You've got what's so weird about that? You've got they've still got Duke Johnson and
they have talent.
They've got talent, but you won't be able to necessarily use it right away. That'd be one thing, but they have an opportunity to get a quarterback that we think that could start pretty early, could pick up an offense pretty quickly. He's played in pro-style systems, and Josh Rosen, and you'd be pretty happy. But
he's too woke for Cleveland, though.
It's too woke for
Cleveland. Baby. It's definitely too woke for Cleveland.
Too woke for Cleveland. That's an album title. So we're going.
Sure.
Or nah, 6 quarterbacks will be taken in the first round.
I say nah. I just don't see it. I could see somebody still trading. The theory makes sense. Somebody trades up right at the end and snags one, but not in this class. I think the big 5 are all going to go. I feel pretty confident about that. I don't see anybody, and I don't see anybody really worthy of a first round pick. After those big 5.
I have heard a little bit about Mason Rudolph going in the first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know who would be because I don't actually hear that the Patriots are all that interested, and they're the only team late in the first that's probably looking for a quarterback. I mean, aside from I mean, I've heard that there's some quarterbacks being linked to the Patriots. None of them have been, I think, Mason Rudolph, and that's the only quarterback I've heard being at the bottom of the. Now, you could always see a team kind of trading up. Maybe the Broncos don't take a quarterback at 6; they trade down, get someone else. They'll trade up in the second, right? But for now, I'm going to go nah.
I originally, it really depends on what happens in those first 5-6 picks or whatnot. Mm-hmm. If there is a run on quarterbacks, if it's just quarterback, then yes, I could definitely see 6 quarterbacks going up. Some team gets really antsy, doesn't want to miss out on a Mason Rudolph or maybe like a Kyle Aletta or Mike White or something that somebody wants to grab or whatever the case is. I still say no. Mm-hmm. So
I like that Mason Rudolph looks the part, 6'5", 230. Good-looking kid, except everything else on him is meh. As a quarterback, everything else is meh. Also, apparently his given name is Brett Mason Rudolph III, so he could be MR3. Just take it.
So that just looks like MRI. That's no good. That's a pretty bad sign.
That's what not great.
That's what you get when you have a really bad injury. MRI.
They put you through it multiple times.
Next up, Lamar Jackson will be QB4 or higher.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a great one. That's a really great one. I want to say because I'm a Lamar Jackson fan, but it's just like, who would the guy to drop be? And we know Rosen is scheduled to make a little slip, but I can't get past 10, 11, 12.
Exactly. Rosen's not drop. Is Rosen? I don't think he could drop out of the top 10 though. That would be...
I could see a scenario where it drops out of the top 10. It would just be kind of one of those weird things, like Aaron Rodgers slide, or I don't think we expected Johnny Manziel to drop out of the top 10.
Mm-hmm. It happened. Teddy Carr, even. I mean, it happens.
But I could see it, but I agree that it's unlikely that any of those 4 quarterbacks. I mean, if I were going to pick one, it would be that the league is actually not as high on Josh Allen as everyone is saying, and then Lamar Jackson would go ahead of him. But I do think that right now, as it stands, Allen's going to go pretty high, and if I were going to peg a spot, I'd pick the Broncos.
Yeah, I think the thing is too with that. unlike some other years where those quarterbacks do fall, there's so many quarterback needy teams. Desperate. They have to draft. They will, no doubt about it, they're going to draft a quarterback. You got past Alex Smith at 1, and you start, it's like, okay, once I get out of the top 10 here, nobody needs a quarterback. You're still going to run into Miami at 11, the Bills at 12, Arizona at 15. Then you get into the Chargers and some other teams. So, I don't think so.
I don't think he'll be top 4 quarterback, but it's kind of like what we've been saying. This is a unique year because everyone at the top of the draft really does need a quarterback, but then you have some of those teams in the middle who need a quarterback, and then we also have teams at the very back end. The Patriots, you have the Patriots, you have the Saints, you have the Steelers who might need to start considering bringing in a quarterback. All those teams, it's rare that we have this many teams kind of scattered throughout the draft where everyone should probably consider to take a first-round quarterback. So,
could the New England or Pittsburgh draft someone later just because they have time to develop them, like a project?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that might
Landry
happen.
Jones coming down.
That might happen.
Not that there's a great crop of mid-round or late-round quarterbacks this year. And, there never are because quarterbacks tend to get pushed up, so the ones in the first round are the only one.
It does seem like this one is specifically bad. There's a few options.
Pittsburgh's got Josh Dobbs.
There wasn't like the Jimmy Garoppolos in the second. And,
Jimmy Garoppolo,
like that,
and people will say that
Dak
this is hindsight, but
Prescott's
there
stuff.
were people that were high on Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson.
Sure.
There are a lot of people saying that, Russ should have been picked in the
and even
first,
like the
right,
Andy
at the
Daltons
time.
and Kaepernick, second-round guys.
Right.
There's guys, if I don't hit this top tier, this draft's just not like
the closest
that.
might be Kyle Lauletta, who has been linked
Mike
to the Patriots.
White, but not much.
But yeah.
No, this will all be hooey when Lamar Jackson goes 14 to the Packers. Just add another layer to that telenovela.
Deshaun Kaiser. Is Brett Hundley still there? He's still there.
He's still there.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers just like, ¿por qué?
You have to remember that Brett Hundley was still there because McCartney constantly had to pretend that this guy could get us through the rest of the
But I meant after the Deshaun Kaiser trade. I do remember
he's still there.
that they were like, why the hell would I sign any quarterback named Colin Kaepernick? We've been working with this guy for 4 years.
No, obviously Deshaun Kaiser, I think, is the long-term goal or plan, but Brett Hundley is like your immediate backup.
Then they trade Rodgers for 4 ones next draft day, and then it's just Lamar Jackson,
who would give up?
I love you, but I hate you.
Who would give up 4 or 3 or whatever? Who would trade for Aaron Rodgers?
Browns.
Do you think? Yeah. Ooh. That would be.
Can you imagine
That would be
being Aaron Rodgers? Can you imagine actually
wow.
being Aaron Rodgers and the depression that's going to set? You got to go save Cleveland.
I mean, Aaron
and
Rodgers.
then he would find a fiery way to.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is driven by
10 and
chips
6
on.
the first
He
year.
still talks about being passed over by
That's right. Yeah,
23
that's right.
teams or whatever.
Get over it, dude.
And it's been forever. He's driven by that chip. He's super arrogant, which in this case would be a great thing. He would embrace it immediately.
Oh,
he would become the new LeBron.
No, all right. So
That's so funny. LeBron's out. We got Rodgers, baby.
no, say the Broncos don't go QB necessarily high this year. Say they get Nelson or Maker or whatever. Then next draft, because you can trade 4 ones on draft day, because that was the scuttlebutt when Chip Kelly was with the Eagles.
Oh, right.
And Mariota
in order to
was
get
available.
Mariota. Yeah.
So John Elway and his Gary Busey teeth. All right. Hey, Guten Cunt, whatever your name is, 4 ones.
Well, he's pretty close. Gutekunst.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's wrong, Tom?
Sorry. Don't tell me that wasn't his name growing up.
I was unprofessional.
Yeah, you're laughing is unprofessional, Tom. But some is professional. Zone Coverage listeners, hey, brand new place around the corner, serving flippin' good burgers. My Burger, family owned, and been obsessed over since 2004. Serving made-to-order burgers, hand-pressed to perfection. Burgers are made fresher, taste better. They feature hand-dipped malts, locally baked gluten-free buns, salads, and sweet potato fries. My Burger also serves, this is also big, various craft beers. Why? Because everyone loves beer. Duh. 5 Twin Cities locations, including Stadium Village, Richfield, Calhoun, Skyway, Minneapolis, and our favorite, little Mac Groveland action. Call us homebodies, but we like it local. There's no shame in ordering seconds. MyBurgerUSA.com. And here's how we take care of you. Get a free My Burger gift card, good for a free burger when you become a Zone Coverage member. So sign up. Do it.
Do it.
Draft coverage.
Do it.
Bam. Hit that up. All right, so back to the list. A little yeah or nah action. The Patriots make a bold move with their 2 firsts.
I don't.
I think they sit put.
I stepped away from that ledge as far as Patriots maybe wanting to move up into, like, maybe an Odell Beckham, or maybe there's a quarterback that they really want to push and try to get. But no, I think there's enough players in this draft. They obviously need to retool their offensive line. They could potentially take a quarterback. They can make moves to fix their defense. I mean, I think they have. There's just too many good players that they could select where they select, and I think that I don't see them wanting to move up.
Yeah, well, I mean, why would they have to go after Odell Beckham if they can just grab Des Bryant right now, right?
Yeah.
But,
God.
I think, and I think I tweeted this out a little bit ago, and I got like a ton of retweets for it, which was just, what if the Patriots just select players in this year's draft with those picks?
That's not evil genius enough, though.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's like the reverse psychology. It's perfect. I mean, either they stock those picks so that they have some picks to give away when they break the rules and are fined a pick, or they're just going to select players. I mean, I think every year we say the sweet spot in the draft is at the bottom of the first. This year, I feel like because the landscape of the draft is really weird.
It is really weird.
It's a goofy year. It's a unique year.
Yeah, I would say that's not as true, but I think there's still a lot of value to be had there.
You think it's kind of right in that middle spot is where?
Yeah, I think your quote unquote sweet spot is like between 7 and like 25.
Derwin James, you know what I mean?
Right.
Denzel Ward's going to fall. Minka, maybe
Jair's going to be
like
there.
That.
Isaiah Wynn's going to be
Harold
around
Landry,
there.
that's your spot.
We've learned that maybe Frank Ragnow's going to be there.
Yeah, Mike McGlinchey, you get your first chance.
Derwin James could definitely be a guy that he probably could be easily a top 10 pick, but
he's going top 12.
Yeah, but he could slide all the way to like what 15,
something like that. Yeah.
Right, and because the draft is deep at one spot, the interior offensive line, you could see Quentin Nelson take a weird fall, which wouldn't be that weird. He's a guard.
No, it wouldn't be.
But
I know that's like still the most curious thing to me is like who's going to actually have the guts to draft a guard in the top 5? You know what I mean?
So
is that going to happen?
Scott McLuhan, because he did it in Washington.
That's true,
and it worked out great.
But I mean, I could definitely see the Bears doing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, like they've placed a high priority on the interior offensive line, both in terms of the money they dole out and the picks they give. So
I could see against Linval and Sheldon twice a year.
Yeah,
but really Mike Daniels
once a year. Yeah.
All right. A couple more yeah or nahs, then we'll get into our 7-round mocks. But yeah or nah? Yeah, we're already laughing at it. Vikings trade a player during the draft.
Vikings trade a
player?
actual player?
A current roster player during the draft.
It just doesn't happen a ton, so but that would be cool.
The reasoning behind that is the cap crunch?
Nah, just Treadwell.
Oh.
It's just
You're saying why doesn't it happen?
No. Why would it happen?
Got it.
Like, would it? Yeah.
It's to get draft capital. I mean, you always need that extra 7th, right?
Gotta have that.
Yeah, you gotta get
if you can swap a former 1 for a 7, you gotta do it. My favorite thing. So draft day. Great movie.
Phenomenal.
And I love when they
robbed of an Oscar, by the way.
Robbed. When they sort of dumb down like speak of whichever
the lingo and everything.
Whichever it is, like they're like, if we trade down from 1 to 7, can that help our cap problems? Like the rookie scale's already slated. You should know this already. How does your capologist not know this?
Of all of the mistakes that movie made, I was going to give it a pass on that one because I bet that script was written a while ago.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the only reason you would have a panic to trade out of the first. Like, there's a bunch of reasons to trade out of the first, but like that's the only one that like sends you into a panic to make a bunch of bad trades, which that movie requires.
Or a GM going like, what else do we need?
Yeah, right.
Best player available, man.
BBA, man.
Or what was it? The Seattle or no, the Jaguars GM is like, we're almost on the clock.
Well, I mean.
Who's the new guy?
Yeah, and they took advantage of the new guy, the new front office guy, the new GM.
I love that he was panicky. Like,
I know.
It's just
and
like,
he played the part perfectly.
He was sweating.
What do they know? What do they know?
Like,
why is he dropping?
What do you know about Bo Callahan?
What do they know?
Well, you didn't do your homework? What have Scott's been doing all year? Besides staying at Red Roof Inns. Next up, yeah or nah, Maurice Hurst will fall out of the first round.
Nah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's legit, man. It sounds like it's legit.
Yeah.
I always say this. It really only takes one team to pull the trigger, or fall in love with the guy. But I feel like from what I'm hearing, it's definitely a legitimate concern with the heart thing. So good.
I just think that a team just...
It's too good to pass up.
He's just too good to pass up. I mean...
It only takes one sort of things?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen...
He applies that to a lot of areas of his life.
We've seen first-round players fall out of the first all the time due to medical concerns.
Andrew Billings.
TJ Clemmings.
Were people really that worried about Teddy's medical issues?
No. I mean, like, not all...
Wasn't like skinny knees a joke? Like at the time?
Yeah, it was a joke.
Jesse Williams, the Alabama
That's why you don't
defensive
joke
tackle.
about stuff like that.
Dorian Johnson went from like the second to the
That's right.
fourth or fifth.
Yeah. And then he got cut.
Yeah, and that never leaked. That never came out.
I know, that was wild. I never was freaking out.
And it was like, it was huge. Whatever.
got a liver.
Desmond King fell. Oh, because he's slow.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You mean
Turned out
Josh
to be great.
Jackson?
Yeah. JJ? It's going to happen.
Yeah or nah, Antonio Callaway will go undrafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. After
1,000%.
I like
he
that
was
it
going to
took-
go undrafted probably, I swear, before that.
I like that it took a failed weed sample to be like, all right, this guy's out.
Well, I mean, it's like, how many chances do you get?
No.
Like, I don't even want to knock the guy too much because, like,
Well, really, though,
you
why
know,
would you
diluted
even-
samples sometimes they just happen. But like,
Dilute sample, new band name.
but I mean, I think he said that last.
Are you
year.
writing these down?
Never
Does
write
it just
stuff down.
float out into the ether? And then it's
What
just-
what genre would our band be? I think we'd
for
have.
diluted sample?
Trash rock.
No,
Yeah,
It depends on our
Trash
band
rock.
name.
It would
I
be
think
trash
we'd
punk.
have to be ska.
Reggae.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
general, we're ska.
No, there's no way. There's no way diluted sample would have enough credibility
Except
to be
we have
reggae.
a-
And we
They would have to
are
be
We
ska.
definitely have to be
Diluted.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't have
Plus, you would be able to play in the band.
We have a horn
point of why
section
we do
and a violin. we're like,
That's what I was getting. You just kept interrupting me.
all right.
Yeah, you
go
used to,
ahead, Tom.
Yinka.
Real quick, going back to the players that fall, how often do you have like a Rodgers situation where a player is supposed to go higher, falls, and actually succeeds, or is it usually they fall for a reason and you're like,
Randy Moss.
I mean,
yeah? I mean, do you guys have a
It
feel?
probably happens all the time. It's difficult because I don't have a great memory for which players were supposed to fall,
Right.
except for the ones that the Vikings selected, like Sharif Floyd. And
Yes,
Floyd
Floyd
was
was my-
phenomenal when he was on the field.
Right.
Like he
And
was
then
almost
good.
Geno Atkins
Top
good.
5.
When he was on the field. So, and like the reason he's no longer playing has nothing to do with why he fell.
I just always think of like a Geno Smith, who like people were right, he just wasn't good. You know, I feel like there's less Geno Smiths, and maybe I just remember the guys that succeed more than the ones that fail. But
Yeah. Well, when guys tend to fall, it's usually either medical or character, and that's always dicey.
Right, and medical can be just basically yes, no.
Right.
Like the GMs have to make a risk analysis, right, where they have to assign a probability, and then that ends up putting itself on a scale, and so the player's grade lowers, even though the player is basically going to be a first round hit or a seventh round miss, right? And so you have to assign some degree of like a spectrum to something that's binary, essentially. And so if a player falls and succeeds, he just fell on one side of the binary when the GMs had to treat it kind of like a spectrum of value.
But with that, it's with the whole risk analysis, it's surprising because obviously quarterbacks is premium, and we saw that in was it 2012 when the Washington took RG3, but they covered themselves by taking Kirk Cousins 2 rounds later.
Yeah.
Which is surprising that more teams don't actually do that, specifically at the quarterback position, because it's such a premium. If you miss on a guy, you don't have a backup.
And we
Good
talked
point.
about that, like whether or not I would love to see a Hard Knocks where there was 2 players drafted, 2 quarterbacks in the same year, because I wonder if they benefit from kind of being there together, right? And kind of the same.
Darnold,
focus on-
Josh Allen, since the Browns are rumored to have hard knocks this year.
you imagine?
1 and 4. Just do it. Who cares?
One of you guys will be a wide
That would-
receiver.
That's such a great benefit to the Browns not actually firing Hugh when they should have. That, like,
He's sitting around being
that
like, you
now
guys
they're
all know-
eligible for Hard Knocks.
yeah.
But but think about it. Like the Browns obviously have pick 4 and pick number 1 overall pick. If they pick 2 quarterbacks,
I imagine
Like-
everyone's saying they should pick 2 quarterbacks with a second, third, or fourth round pick, not.
but no,
with
but
pick 4. But I mean, if they did, that would be phenomenal. I would love
It'd be
it.
so funny.
1 and 4, ransom one of them, or be like, all
No,
right,
they
fine.
could absolutely do that. Like,
Yeah, they got the cap space.
what does our capologist have to say? Well, let me walk down the stairs before I tell you.
but the Browns would be able to control so much as far as like quarterback monopoly. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy that you don't like, a team who probably still needs a quarterback who missed out on the guy that you picked.
No, yeah, absolutely.
You could
flip them, maybe even for more, because the better the quarterback that you do like does, the higher the potential ceiling of the guy who didn't do as well.
Exactly.
Plus, I mean, teams always think that they can get more out of a guy than one other team. That's why they're coaches.
Or they'll pick the two worst ones, and then everyone will be like, no, we're good. Good luck with all that.
Wait, if he's playing, why's that other dude on the bench? No, thank you.
Yeah, good luck in your future endeavors, Browns. All right, so last yeah or nah, and then we'll get into our 7-round mocks. Arif, you'll be up first, so get locked and loaded. Last up is yeah or nah. Rick Spielman will end up with 10 or more picks.
Ooh, okay, well.
I'm kind of feeling 9, but I'm going to go, I'll say yeah.
Apparently on the other station,
I'm going to say yeah, too.
Apparently at the other station this morning, they were like, well, if Spielman is so good at picking players, why does he need 10 picks?
But that's the point.
I'm really hoping that was tongue-in-cheek, but I don't think it was.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you have more picks if you can be really good at
they're
adding
scratch
players?
outs, man. They're lotto picks.
But if you're good at picking players, Arif, just take 3 good players instead of 10 chances.
Well,
also that's one of the reasons he's good is that he.
I think that's something that the league still is
bad at.
Yes, is they like I'd much rather take the guy that I want than taking a bunch of guys that I maybe want. Whereas we've already shown.
Go get your guy.
Go get your guys, and not just
multiple.
Don't get your guy. Go get your guys. Plural.
And wait until you see Luke's draft.
Oh,
don't tell him.
All right, Arif, you're up first. Tom, give us the NBA and NBC. Hello.
Oh, sorry. It's coming.
He said hello.
All right.
I thought you were enjoying the starting line, which played automatically.
Yeah, but that's a pretty good YouTube automatic recommendation. It fits.
Yeah, it worked.
All right, so we should have 7-round Vikings mock draft, and we're going to reveal ours, and then everyone will be like, all right, or meh.
Yeah.
That's about it.
God, I love this so much.
I know. Crank that.
There you go. Oh, now I'm ready to NFL draft. Let's do this. All right, Arif, what you got?
So I traded down in the second, but I kept the first-round pick, so I got Billy Price.
Yes.
Lost out in Isaiah Wynn. Obviously, I love him. I think Frank Ragnow had actually already gotten drafted, too.
Boy, the Ragnow steam the last week.
Just the week. Yeah.
When's Labrum? Get him in third.
Yeah. Billy Price's doctor just said that he should be cleared for training camp, which... Take that how you will.
William Price will be fine.
Yeah, William Price will be fine. His pectoralis is completely healed.
The glutes are great, too. Wait, what?
As an aside.
I always thought Billy was...
Hi, everybody!
Billy.
Dr. Nick.
But yeah, I mean, we know Price is a good system fit. He's played a lot of zone style running. He's pretty effective. I think he's a better guard than he is a center. But hey, you've got a backup center now, too. And he is former teammates with Pat Elflein. Hashtag chemistry.
Also, Jamarco Jones, will we get him in the third?
You could.
Stack it up.
He's not good, but...
He's really not.
But he's got a lot of... people like him a lot. So I traded down in the second, grabbed an extra third, and I think an extra fourth.
And wow. Then you got a third and a fourth? For how many spots did you move down in the second?
I moved from the second to like round 3, pick 14.
Got it.
And then I traded I traded a bunch. So round 3, pick 14, Nathan Shepard. We've talked about him a couple of times on the show.
Yeah, I love Shepard. Trenches, man. Love it.
Yeah.
Billy Price and Shepard. I think if you just lay that out for the average draft fan, Viking fan that's been keeping tabs, they love that draft. If they know how good Nathan Shepard could be.
Yeah, super violent, very quick, fluid mover. He could actually lose a little bit of weight because he was at 314, I think, at the combine, 310 at the Senior Bowl.
Pre-dump.
Yeah.
Pre-morning dump.
Right.
I love they
Wait, so did he gain weight by going to the...
Hold it in.
Stay at a Holiday Inn.
I love they started his career at some place called Simon Fraser.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of NFL people that have come from Simon Fraser.
He came in as a linebacker.
Yeah. So he was initially a linebacker. gained a bunch of weight, played defensive tackle, gained more weight so that he could play hybrid nose tackle 3 technique at the Senior Bowl, gained more weight for the Combine, killed the Combine.
Destroyed the
and
Combine.
I think if he goes to the Vikings, he'd lose weight to be back at 295 to 305 to be even quicker. I think he'd be great. He was pretty good against the run at Fort Hays State. He needs to clean up his technique, but he gets to sit behind Sheldon Richardson while Andre Patterson is coaching him. Yeah, and so you've got potentially 2 hybrid nose tackles, 3 techniques, and Jaleel Johnson and Nathan Shepard kind of on the rise for the Vikings. So I think that's good. Cornerback Duke Dawson, Florida, 37 passer rating when thrown to. 5'11", so he's not quite the 6'0", and he's got shorter arms.
Slot guy?
So you're going to keep him in the slot. And he played a lot of slot at Florida, too. He kind of tilted the defense in his favor whenever he was on the field. He's one of the few things that was going right for Florida. Pretty good job getting his hands on the ball. If I remember correctly, he didn't get a bunch of interceptions, but a ton of pass breakups.
Remember, he was buried, too, early on with Vernon Hargraves and Quincy Wilson as well. So
and better coverage statistics than Quincy Wilson, which is always nice. Then after that, running back Nyheim Hines, I think people listening to this podcast probably are familiar with him, ran like a 4.38 or something like that, maybe even faster, 4.35.
He's what we wanted Michael Bennett to be.
I guess.
Also kick return.
Yeah, and a kick returner. But to replace Jerick McKinnon, more natural pass catcher coming out of the draft than McKinnon was, who, remember, was a quarterback at Georgia Southern. Super dynamic player, accounted for a ton of yards. One of the things that I found out when I was doing this analytics study, super hard to predict running backs based off of their college production, but one of the best ways to do it is to actually take their per-game totals. So total rushing plus total receiving plus total kick returns. And here's the interesting kicker, plus 5 times the total punt return yardage. And that gives you a pretty good proxy for how much production ends up in the NFL, because punt return yards are so much harder to come by. And so they mean more when you get them, and he's a kick returner and punt returner. I think he has the 2nd or 3rd most adjusted yards per game in college, so he's interesting. After that, another 4th-round pick, Brandon Parker, North Carolina A&T. We watched him at the Senior Bowl, liked what he did. He wasn't great on the first day. In fact, he was pretty bad on the first day. But the thing that stood out to me is that he continued to grow, which I think the year before, we were talking about that Bucknell kid, Julian Davenport. I didn't like him because he never grew over the course of that week. I think Brandon Parker did.
Where did he end up?
I want to say the Panthers for some reason, but that could be wrong.
It might have been the Broncos. But yeah, the Texans. It's some
Close
Western
enough.
team.
Yeah.
Cowboy theme, right? But yeah, so I got him.
One of the cat teams.
Cat teams. So I was in a group chat with Luke earlier today, and I was like, yeah, I think that rumor was about the Jaguars. Arif was about the Panthers. Some team with cats.
One of the cats.
And I was talking to a Lions beat writer about it, too. It was perfect.
That's right. That's right.
Many Baleen teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that, I got Kylie Fitz in the 5th round. Kylie Fitz is the perfect, I think, prototypical Vikings pick. Knocks all the measurables out of the park. He's a mid-round pick. Phenomenal 3-cone, great vertical, pretty productive at Utah. Not as old as a lot of Utah prospects, so you could do something with him. Next pick, Durham Smythe out of Notre Dame. Mostly a blocking guy.
Gotta get a tight end, though. Have to.
He's very David Morgan-ish in a lot of ways. He's great at catching the ball, not great at getting open downfield, doesn't have the speed. But fantastic blocker. And
classic inline tight end, though, blocking tight end. That, again, we just need some bodies.
Yeah, you need
Blake
some bodies.
Bell comes back. He can be more of that passing weapon, maybe, if need be. But just tells you how thin we are.
And goal line quarterback.
Oh, touche.
Belldozer.
Next 2 picks, small school wonders, both super productive at their small schools, both super athletic, and knocked their respective pro days out of the park, beat almost everybody at the combine at their respective positions. Southern Miss Tavarius Moore, safety, and defensive lineman P.J. Hall from Sam Houston State. Hall's film isn't all that great. He needs a lot of coaching up, but he was pretty productive, and that's mostly a product of his incredible athleticism. He kind of reminds me a little bit of kind of the worst parts of Taven Bryan, along with some of the best parts of Taven Bryan. Doesn't have a plan moving upfield, but does have the ability to get upfield in the first place. You can always work with that. Plus, the Vikings visited with P.J. Hall. I think they visited with Tavarius Moore as well, so that's something to keep track of. So those were 2 6th-round picks. The other 6th-round pick was Matthew Thomas, Florida State. Mentioned him a couple of times.
You sold me on him. Love him. I mean, when he was on the field for Florida State, led the team in tackles. That's what you need to know.
Missed a year because of academic eligibility. Apparently, it was because his mom died, so that's not as huge a red flag as I initially thought. But really productive, incredibly athletic. Ran a 4.44. At the combine, and the rest of his athletic measurables followed through. Needs to be a little bit better in coverage, but he has the athletic tools. Anthony Barr did it. Maybe he can do it. If not, he's a form tackler. He doesn't hit with a lot of power, but he's a form tackler. You can always use him on special teams. Then I had 2 picks left. I might as well. Got punter Michael Dixon, supposed to be the best punter in the draft by actually a pretty significant margin. He's what like a Shane Leckler type of guy.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
Is the kind of
I'm not going to argue with you on that. That's for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I've talked to some special teams nerds about him. They love him, so picked him. And then 7th-round pick, I just had to go with the guy that I loved at the Senior Bowl, accounted for 50% of his team's receiving yards. The only other player to do that in the draft that still ran a standard college offense was DJ Moore. He's going in the 1st. This guy's going in the 7th. Justin Watson from Penn. 40-inch vertical. I think he ran faster than a 4.5. Either way, I think he's taller than 6'2". He's a big guy. Was able to use his size really well at the Senior Bowl against Division I 4-star, 5-star cornerbacks. I mean, everybody that he was playing against in the Ivy League knew the ball was going to him, saw a bunch of double coverage, some triple coverage. He was still productive. So those are the guys that I got. Obviously, I focused a lot on athletes. I focused a lot on people that were really productive. I'm an analytics dude, but, I mean, I really like this draft. Yeah, fair.
It's...
I like.
Do you want to start?
I like the number of buys. All right.
It's great. It's great.
We're up against the clock, so I'm going to run through mine quick, and then Luke and Yinka will get to yours in hour 2. Luke, you're going last.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So mine.
Just don't hype it up.
Yinka Fitzpatrick, baby.
Yeah, man. It's magic.
It's magic.
All right, so mine only did 2 trades because I just need a taste, not full on addict. So 30. In my hypothetical, I moved up from 30 to 34. Giants took Saquon at 2. They moved up for Mason Rudolph. I don't know. Whatever. Got a 4th-round pick out of it, so thanks, Sam Bradford. We got that back. Took James Daniels, center, Iowa.
Booyah.
Yeah.
Love him.
I just like it. Yeah. 2nd round. Ooh, shifting around. Giving that 4th-rounder back. Moving up from 62 to 53.
So you moved up.
Yep. With Buffalo, took... Nate Shepard. Now,
another O lineman with Nate Shepard coming back.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, Arif and I, we're men of the people. We're trying to give the people what they want, bread and circuses, and what the people want, besides bread and circuses, is an O-line, D-line. First 2 picks off the board. Dirty. There we go. 3rd round, 94, Naheem Hines.
Talked about him a
we've
little
heard
bit.
about him.
Love Hines. Yeah. Love Hines.
Skip the 4th round again. Thanks, Sam Bradford. 5th round. Guy who's been brought up on the show before, tackle from TCU, Joseph Noboom.
He's kind of interesting. I don't think he looked great at the Senior Bowl, but his film is actually pretty good.
He's super athletic.
He's super athletic.
It reminds me of
that shows up.
Avante Collins type, where they just want to get another athletic big body in here.
And he's bigger than Avante Collins. He's longer than Avante Collins. There's a lot to work with. All you have to do coach him up really is on his base when he's taking on a block, and I think he could end up actually being a starting quality tackle.
Into the 6th round, 204. Getting some slot cornerback help. Also returner. Darius Phillips, cornerback, Western Michigan. Row the
really
boat.
good returner.
Like Darius Phillips.
Row the boat. 2nd of the 6. I do who this is. I don't care. 213, Davin Bellamy, linebacker, Georgia.
Oh, Bellamy.
Yeah, he could be an
Georgia,
edge player or a linebacker.
Yeah.
I think with the Vikings, he'd be a linebacker because he's pretty small.
I think you just take some shots on these Georgia front 7 guys. There's a lot of them.
And he's reasonably athletic, reasonably good tackling form. You could see him on special teams.
I take that back. I know everything about him. Exactly that.
Yeah.
Last of the 6, 218, wide receiver, Middle Tennessee State University. Richie James.
I was talking to Jordan Reed on Norse Code the other day, and I asked him to give me a small school guy that could go later in the draft that might be a perfect Viking. Richie James was his guy.
Yeah.
Richie. No, Andy knew that.
Yeah, of course he did.
I was looking forward to seeing him play the Gophers, except they got hurt that game.
That's right. Yeah, you took work off and everything. I remember that.
I was watching on Big Ten Network at 11 a.m.
At beat-ups.
Go up and get it kind of guy, so maybe he could win in the red zone if he ends up getting past the relatively thin wide receiver depth chart the Vikings have.
Last but not least, 225. As we know, Spielman likes taking a linebacker late. This one's from Maryland. Jermaine Pee Wee Carter Jr. Just tackling machine,
Just
heart and soul,
yeah.
Rudy, all those other
So
cliches.
intimidating. Call me Pee Wee.
Hey, man. Antonio Richardson. Tiny Richardson. The only guy that could potentially have been bigger than Phil Lodeholt.
Yeah.
He wasn't, but they
Not
thought
a great
that
example.
he might have been.
Didn't make it through training camp. Not a great example, but
I remember Tiny.
Yeah. Cracking open the phone lines, and also we'll get to Yinka and Luke's 7-round mock in hour 2. So subscribe. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, iRadio, and zonecoverage.com/machine. But for Luke and Arif and Yinka and Tom, I'm Andy. Say, let's hour 2.